a Talk Dodgers podcast.
What happens in Vegas?
With time.
What happens in Vegas? First down, touchdown, Super Bowl. Vegas Heat, Sin City Streets, red is too cold.
Touchdown.
Carter Waller, it can't be stopped. Jacobs with the rock. O-line hit the blocks. Offense off the chain. Defense is ready. Raider Nation, one goal, just win Vegas. What happens in Vegas? What happens in Vegas? What happens in Vegas?
What up? What happens in Vegas, listeners? Man, that intro gets me pumped. It gets me excited for this season. I'm just jacked for week one to be coming here, man. Like, it feels like, you know, the off season and training camp and mini camps and preseason. I don't know, man. I get a little anxious around this time of the year. I know we just got, you know, the 49ers coming up, but, you know, for preseason, but I'm still, you know, highly anticipating week one. Like, you know how every fan of every team is like super excited at this time of the year. So I'm getting to that point where, man, I'm just tired of everything else. And I just want to see regular season football. I'm your host, Neal. You're listening to What's Happening in Vegas. You know that already. You know what's going on. Some quick updates before the preseason game on Sunday. The Raiders traded for Denzel Perryman. You're familiar with him. It looks like it's simply a, you know, linebacker depth move. He's familiar with Gus Bradley. He knows the system. He knows what's happening here. So he doesn't need a lot of practice. He doesn't need, you know, a lot of teaching and all this kind of stuff. He's already good with all that. Obviously, you know, this feels like more of a, you know, White is injured, Morrow's injured. We need a body who knows the system. We don't got to sit here and, you know, try to figure it out. So he'll, if needed, he'd be like a plug and play depth kind of move, you know, for week one. It's, you know, his concern is just staying healthy, man. Like, just stay healthy and be a useful, you know, player out there when needed, if called upon, you know. So it's not like anything major, you know, it's nothing earth shattering. It did cause the Raiders to waive Coney again. Palm Beach Gardens representing. But yeah, he got waived again. I just talked about him being signed, and now he's cut again. It's hard out here for a backup, man. It's hard out here for a guy trying to make a team, and, you know, you're not a bona fide starter, a star in the league, a guy who's well established, and you're just guys like Coney, man, and tons of other guys all across the league. They're just looking for one opportunity where they could just latch on somewhere and at least be considered, you know, like a depth guy at the very least. And you see these guys constantly, man, signed, a couple of days later cut, and you hope they land on the practice squad or something like that just to get an opportunity to keep fighting. It just sucks to see those kind of things. You know, those stories always suck. And, you know, if you start really looking into them, it's kind of a downer. And it's going to be the same thing when cuts start happening here to get this team down to the 53-man roster. You're going to see a bunch of players, man, again, hitting open market, hitting free agency, hoping for opportunities across practice squads and everything else. You know, obviously some vets shake loose and some guys with potential shake loose, and teams will pick them up. So that's always good. But we'll get to that point when it happens. We'll see if the Raiders end up making any surprise cuts or some additions from the surprise cuts of other teams. But yeah, as far as Denzel Perryman, it's just a depth move. It's a word that trips me up sometimes, man. It's a move that, you know, the team needed some guys who could just plug and play. Obviously, you know, they need Tanner Muse, they need Divine, they need these guys to really step up, especially with, you know, White and Morrow going out like that. Two guys that they were really kind of, you know, it seemed like they were really putting a lot of faith in, a lot of hope, you know, that these guys would be big time contributors, especially Morrow. But the injuries obviously are going to slow that up. So they need Muse, they need Divine, they need these guys to step up in the meantime. It is what it is. Small sign-in, nothing major, but we're definitely going to report on it because that's what we do here. That's what we do at What Happens in Vegas. We cover the Raiders and everything about the Raiders, and that is what we are talking about here, man. We got to talk about these things. I also started to talk about Clelin, you know, being part of the second unit rush team, and I know this really bothers a lot of people. I know the pick itself bothered a lot of people. A lot of Raider fans weren't behind that pick, you know, initially, right? Like some are still not on board with it. They were never really happy with it because it wasn't what we were anticipating, what we were hoping for. He's been okay. Like, he hasn't been great in any way, shape, or form. The second unit rush team is probably the best place for him. Honestly, I don't get bummed out about this kind of stuff. I don't get down about it. I'm okay with it because I like how Gus Bradley, since he's been here, it feels like guys are being given more like defined roles, even if they're in a limited capacity, even if the role isn't as, grand as you'd want it, especially for a guy like, getting drafted where Cleveland got drafted. But at least he's getting put in a position to succeed, right? Like him coming off not as a starter, coming with the second unit, hopefully going against some guys, who are needing a breather. And, you take out Crosby and then Conway and you put in Clee, and you hope that, he gets in there, and after those guys beat up on some players, on some guards, he gets to jump in there on some tackles and take, make something of it. Because those guys, he'll come in with fresh every time he's in, he should be fresh. So I like it. I think honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he has the same kind of production, with that style, with that, role than he did as a full-time, starter playing every single snap, or even better. Who knows? I just feel like the Gus Bradley thing, he's not just throwing players out there and hoping shit happens. Like, hey, we drafted him first, must be the starter. Nah, man, Gus Bradley is like, no, he's not our starter. We got some other guys here, and obviously, the big free agent move this year, this is kind of a forced, thing that had to happen. There's no way you're gonna get, Clee out there starting with these two other guys. So it's interesting. We'll see how it plays out. But I do think that when you have players who aren't going to be or aren't good enough to be a starter or just aren't there yet for whatever reason, or maybe they'll never be there, that giving them defined roles, limited roles where they can come in while other guys are tired and exhausted or need breathers, and these guys can come in with a fresh burst of energy. I really think it could be beneficial to a lot of guys' careers, and there's nothing wrong with that guy. Obviously, as fans, we're upset that we drafted that guy where we drafted him, because you would hope to get that guy later in the draft, but there's nothing wrong with it just on the surface, just looking at it from the surface. And speaking of young players, the secondary, there's a lot of the interviews that went out today, a lot of the articles that went out today, a lot of the tweets that were out there today following practice, Robertson getting talked about a lot, Arnette getting talked about a lot. Arnette supposedly had a really good day. It seems like they're finding their way. Again, I think this is also not just another year in the NFL, but I really think Gus Bradley is playing a big part in this, as finding, the guys where they belong, man. Finding where they belong, giving them confidence. It makes sense that if we start seeing a lot of success from some of these guys who haven't really had an opportunity to show it in the past, that a lot of it has to do with the coaching. Obviously the development of these guys is, it's not going to be ignored, but I'm just saying that I think the coaching can't be understated in this case. It's the same thing when we see other positions on the team, positions like, the O-line and stuff. Coaching obviously has been major. It's been a major factor. And it, to deny that would be stupid. So hopefully the secondary is really coming together like we're hoping. Hopefully the articles and what the reporters and stuff are saying are not just, pure optimism. Let's hope that there's some real, substance to this. And if there is, if the D-line can get moving, get the quarterback running out there or putting him on the ground, the linebacker core could be, consistent, decent. Doesn't need to be the greatest of all time, but as long as they can be consistent and do their job, if the secondary, takes a step forward and these young guys really, improve, because it sounds like, for the most part, everything we're hearing is pretty positive. Like, we're not hearing a lot of guys getting crushed out there, getting beat every single camp, making mistakes every play in the preseason. No one's been like absolutely destroyed or horrible. So it could just be my optimism, but I want to believe that a lot of these young guys are starting to come along. And we'll see. And this is the thing, the preseason game this week versus the 49ers Sunday. I'm fine with the team keeping the starters out. Like, keep these guys out, man. Whoever hasn't played at this point because you wanted to protect them, just keep them out. Don't even put Mariota in. Don't put any starters in. I'm not here to see a player get injured before the season starts that, is a surefire starter for the team. I don't care. If these guys can't start week one after all this practice, after everything they've been doing, and just, start off on fire, it is what it is. They don't need some reps in preseason to make it matter at this point. You know, absolutely. I have zero interest in them risking themselves or an injury by getting some reps in preseason. I don't care. At this point, I don't care. I'm trying to see all the rookies. I'm trying to see the second-year guys. I want to see these guys fighting for their, fighting, not necessarily fighting for their jobs, because probably a lot of them are safe, because they're so still, new on the team. But, man, fighting for these roles that I'm talking about, these defined roles. Like, look at Nate Hobbs, man. Nate Hobbs, just through the preseason alone, obviously at practice and everything, but the preseason and everything, it's very obvious that this guy earned his job, man. He earned the role. It's very clear. So I want to see more of those guys, like, be obvious. In preseason, I want to see them be obvious. We always go back to preseason doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like, I echo that a lot on here because everyone keeps running to that idea. But Nate Hobbs balled. I mean, he just crushed it in preseason. And that shit matters. It matters. Like, him doing that matters. And so I want to see some other guys, like, really stand out. I want to see some guys make some obvious plays. I'm more concerned about it on defense. I want to see big plays on defense more than the offense. Like, we know what the offense is, right? Like, there's no question about it. It's Derek Carr. It's Darren Waller. It's a bunch of wide receivers who, are going to get all mixed in there. There's not going to be any, one guy who absolutely dominates the wide receiver position. Ruggs is going to make plays. Edwards hopefully makes plays. Renfro will do what he does. Zay Jones, John Brown. Like, I don't care about Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake. Like, we already know what's happening there. It's as sure as it could be on the offense. Like, there's no real question marks. The question mark will be, who do they cut? From the wide receivers. That's really the only question I have with the offense. I think everything else is, man, as set in stone as it could possibly be. So I don't need the offense to do anything major. I don't need Peterman, to crush it out there. I'm not watching that game for the preseason. I mean, for the offense. I'm watching this preseason game for the defense. And I know things are vanilla. The play calling is vanilla. They're playing against backups, but I want to see some electric players, man. I want to see some plays that just stand out. Because Hobbs just stood out, man. There's been no question about it. And some of these vets out here need to fight for these jobs too. Some of them aren't guaranteed. Like, what is their role? Even if they're going to make the team, how much of a, how much, reps are they going to get really in games? Are they going to be in the second unit straight, the obvious second unit? Are they going to be less than second unit? Like, you really don't know. So this is the opportunity where I want to see some guys really step up, just for the hell of it. And let's go 3-0 in the preseason. Why not? Why not? It doesn't matter, Neal. It's just the preseason. We can go undefeated in the preseason and not win a game in the regular season. I hear you. I hear your little negative self. It's still fun to get them W's, boy. Still fun. So that's it. That's all the Raiders have been up to lately, I'm recording this on Thursday. So, depending on when you hear this, we'll see. We'll see what they're up to then. The next episode will be dependent on if there's any other big news between now and the game against the 49ers. If not, the next What Happens in Vegas episode will drop post preseason game, post the 49ers game. We'll recap it. We'll talk about, what stood out, who didn't look so great, who definitely needs to get cut on these last cuts. We'll cover everything. We'll cover everything necessary for the 49ers preseason game. We'll do a recap. Other than that, guys, that's it for What Happens in Vegas today. Again, I'm your host, Neal. You know where to find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's @ClockDodgers. Follow me on there. Send me a quick message when you do. I will follow you back. Let me know, hey, I'm listening to the podcast, blah, 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 and then I'll follow you back. That way I know, where you're coming from. And if you haven't yet, get on the Apple Podcast app, hit subscribe. If this is your first time listening, welcome. I'm glad that you decided to join us. Go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then if you can, please, it's super important, if you can leave a 5-star review, show us some love. We got a, few of them in there now, but I'd love for y'all to keep dropping them in there. It's letting people know, hey, it's letting Raider fans know this is a quality podcast. This is not one that you want to miss. You want to get this into your, your arsenal for Raiders content, and your review makes or breaks that. It lets everyone know, hey, definitely check this one out. This isn't just a Raiders podcast to skip through. You want to put this one on your list and subscribe to it. And you guys are the ones that make that happen. It's not something I do, it's what you do. So shout out to the Raider Nation. I know y'all go hard for us. I know y'all go hard for, supporting your own. So I appreciate you guys as always. And I'll catch you after the 49ers game. What happens in Vegas?
This is the Clock Dodgers Podcast.